somewhere in Jerusalem, there is Lady Hazan.
Shalom. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Levi Chazan, your host, coming to you from Yeshivat Rayon HaYehudi in Yerushalayim. And welcome aboard, everybody, our home audience. It's good to have you here. And, of course, you at home who are with us today. Beautiful day here, coming to you from Jerusalem. Parsha Shavua mikeit. And here we have the scene, the developing scene for the salvation of Joseph, who has just spent his last 12 years in harsh condition in the dungeons of prison. I wouldn't want to work that on anybody. No siree. Not a happy time for Joseph, day in and day out, getting up there in the prison walls. With no hope, I should add. Absolutely no hope. In those days, a person in prison would be in prison forever. There'd be no way to get out. A death sentence. Literally. But God is the master of the world. And so God had other plans. And as our rabbis teach us, ke'erafayim, in a split second, everything turns around. And all of a sudden, the lowly Joseph, the slave, the imprisoned, is all of a sudden being taken out, washed, placed with new clothing, and going before Paro, the king himself. Amazing story. And this, of course, is the lesson that we have to learn from this week's parsha. Yeshuat Hashem ke'erafayim. God's salvation comes in the split of an eye. It could be a second before a situation of despair, of darkness, of gloom. There is no hope. I have overdraft in the bank. It doesn't look like I'll ever be able to get out of it. I have tremendous problems at work, at home. Doesn't look like anything could be salvaged. Doesn't look good at all. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. The rabbis come to teach us, never give up hope. In fact, we are taught by the descendants of David, King David himself, even if a sword is munach al tzvaro, even if a sword is placed upon a person's neck, never give up for redemption. In a split second, everything could be turned around. And here we have Joseph getting out of prison. Why? Because God decided that it was time, to the exact day, which is fascinating. Joseph was added to his sentence another 2 years, as we saw last week, for the lack of faith that he had. And exactly to that day, it was time for Joseph to get out. He had paid the price. More important, he had learned a lesson of faith, total faith in the Ribono Shel Olam. And so that very night, Paro couldn't sleep and had his dreams. And he wakes up in the morning, Paro, and he has all his chachmalogios. He's got all his wise people and his witchcraft people, and they're all out there, and they've been fine up until now to give him advice. He's been happy with them. And when it comes to this particular dream that he had, they don't seem to find anything really to make sense. A rather simple dream when you look at it, not something that really needs to go so into the depths to understand, but they're unable to come up with any type of solution which sits on Paro's heart, which he feels good about, as if they've interpreted the dream. And so, without any other option, they turn to Joseph. Yeah. Now, of course, this is done. The person who remembers the steward, the wine steward, who was in prison with Joseph, and he was a bad man. And even the goodness of the people who are bad isn't what they're putting forth isn't really good. And so he tells Paro, you know what? In my bad days when I was in prison, there was an Eved Ivri. He was a slave. He was a nar. He was a youngster. He's nothing. He's not in a position of power. He's not going to be so unimportant. He's nothing. And he kept putting him down. But there was no choice. Paro saw that he had to also ask this particular person. So they immediately take out Joseph, take him out of the prison, and with a matter of minutes, gets a nice haircut. We all need a good haircut. Makes us feel good. Change his clothes, put him in the shower room, sauna, and they put him before Paro. And Joseph does his work. It's God who is going to reveal the dream to Paro, and he makes it known to Paro exactly what's going to be happening. And of course, he throws in that Paro should get somebody, who's smart, who has fear of God, who could understand what's going on over here, in order to get and to make sure that Egypt is able to weather the storm. 7 years, the 7 years of plenty, but also the 7 years of famine. Paro looks at his advisors who could do such a thing, and of course God implants in their thoughts that it will be Joseph who will be it, and within a minute of minutes, Joseph is Mishneh L'Melech, second in command. It's unbelievable how salvation comes. We have another example of this Ruach Hashem, the Spirit of God who comes in and brings salvation within a man of merits, when we talk about the first king of Israel, which is none other than Shaul, from the tribe of Binyamin. Now, the people of Israel at the time, this is of course hundreds of years later, requested from the prophet Shmuel to have a king. We also want a king to be like the nations. So God really wasn't into getting them a king at that particular point. It wasn't the proper time yet, but if the people wanted it, so be it. And God says, we have a king. I have chosen Shaul. Shaul, he was tall, he was handsome, he rose above the other people, but he wasn't such a big fighter. I wouldn't say that he used to lift weights. I wouldn't say that. He was a shepherd. The people looked at him when it was realized that it was Shaul who was going to be the king. They weren't so thrilled, to say the least. In fact, Shaul himself was very bashful. And so when it came the time to anoint the king, they had a big ceremony where all the people came together into one big stadium. No one knew exactly who the king would be. And then the prophet Shmuel announced that it would be Shaul from the tribe of Benjamin. And they searched high and low. But Shaul was nowhere to be found. Now Shaul had already known that he was chosen, but he was bashful, so he hid. Where was he hiding? Our rabbis tell us he was hiding with the luggage. Sort of like if you have a big stadium today, he's out there in the parking lot, hiding underneath the car, doesn't want to get involved. So they all run all over the place looking for him. Where is he? Where is this guy who's going to be our new king, who's going to be our new leader? He must be a gibor, right? He must be someone who's heroic. And they couldn't find him. Finally, they found him by the luggage and they pull him out. They say, here's your king. People look at him and say, oh my gosh, this is the king? This is what we prayed for? This guy's a nerd. This guy's going nowhere. This guy's a zero. This guy's a loser. We don't need him as a king. Oh my gosh. This is horrible. And everyone went home. I could say disappointed also. And Shaul went home also from this ceremony. So we have sort of like a half king. I mean, the people came, there was a ceremony, but no one really accepted upon himself the kingship of Shaul. He didn't look like much from the outside. And Shaul himself went back to being a shepherd. And all of a sudden, days go by, and in the east, there's trouble brewing, and one of the nations is coming out to attack the Jewish people. And the Jewish people are frightened, and they don't know what to do. And the nations come to attack the Jewish people on the Eastern Front, and they say, look, you have to be subservient to us. You have to be slaves to us. You have to chop off your ear. That's the condition that we have, so we won't come to attack you. Well, these people didn't know what to do, and they were frightened. And they came running. Shaul heard about this. He said, this is crazy what's going on over here. And then the text tell us, Ruach Hashem nechnas bo. a spirit of God entered him, and Shaul became a different person. Yeshuat Hashem ke'erifayin. In a split second, the whole situation changed. Shaul became a man. His anger flared up in him. He ripped apart a bull which was at the scene, and he sent parts of the bull to every tribe in Israel. And he said, whoever doesn't come after Shaul into the army to fight will be taken down. We'll pay the price for going against the king. A spirit of Hashem came into Shaul, and he went out to war with his soldiers, and they were victorious against the nations from the east. So we see from this story over here how a king was chosen, but he was missing the Zitzflight. He was missing the heroic part of being a king. He was missing the leadership of being a king. But God had chosen because God saw something. He saw the potential in him. And when the Ruach Hashem was placed into him, Shaul became a different person. This is the lesson for today. We are in difficult times. We have threats from all over the world, whether it's from Iran, other Arab nations, Syria, Egypt, Europe, everyone coming down against us, State Department, all coming down, very, very bad times. You look around, who's going to lead us? Who's going to be with strength like the Maccabees of the old days who could come and lead the Jewish people? Who could it be? How will we succeed? And you look around and say, we got people in Williamsburg and we got people in Borough Park, and it's just not it. It's just not happening. We need a leader, a strong person who could stand up to these nations, someone who's full of the spirit of Hashem, full of faith in the Ribbon Shalom. And you look around and you say, it's never going to happen. But just like Joseph in Egypt, in prison, in gloom, in darkness, with no light at the end of the tunnel, taken out like that, and moved back to a high position to be second in command. And just like Shaul, king of Israel, looked like a nobody, a real zero. God placed in him Ruach Hashem, Spirit of God, and he became a different man, a leader. So too today, we have nothing to worry about. Out there, somewhere, someone is that person to be the leader, to lead the Jewish people in the end of days. He may not know it. We certainly don't know it. But it's probably that guy who looks like a Nebuch, who probably got a ponytail, Kippah Sruga, the last person on earth you would think would be the one to lead the Jewish people to victory. But he's out there, and in a split second, Ruach Hashem comes, and he becomes the leader and the fighter for the Jewish people. So too in our private lives also, amongst the many problems that we have. Bank accounts, this, that. Person should never despair. Never despair. Salvation comes in a split second. 1 second you're down in the dumps. You don't know how God will bring salvation for you personally. And another second, he does. Out of the backfield. Through the back door, so to speak. Unexpectedly. That's where the salvation's coming from. That's the message. This week's parsha. I'm Levi Chazan, coming to you from Yeshivat Rayon Hayudi in Yerushalayim. Till next time.